Hey there, friends. Dave Paulides, Canadian Missing Project. That, look at those eyes. That is the executive producer, Huck L. Berry. Huck is having some fun times because it's so cold. In the morning, I put on like a down coat to go outside because it's so cold. Huck's just like running around in her element, enjoying life. She's a good girl. Hey, she's a good girl. I'll do a good job for you. Now, this is coming up. November 28th. At the Tacoma Convention Center will be the premiere of American Sasquatch Man, Myth, or Monster. And you can go to our website, missing411.com, and you can get tickets there. Now, obviously I'm filming this before the actual date it's going to air, so hopefully tickets are available for you. 2 tiers, standard entry, and then premiere, which is, we've designed something that's kind of special if you want to do that. And it's going to be, the Tacoma Convention Center is a good location, not far from Seattle at all. And we did it there because that is the hub of Bigfoot in our world, the Pacific Northwest. We also wanted to make it close enough to Vancouver so the people in Canada can come down if they wanted to see a premiere. We're going to have some really good people there. And at the end of the premiere, I'm going to do a little Q&A with the audience, and I'm also going to bring up a couple of the researchers that are in the movie, and I'll talk to them about their experience and what they know, what they don't know. It'll be fun. The movie poster will go up for sale December 1st on our website, missing411.com. We also have got some really cool hats that have American Sasquatch, and a beanie, and I wrote a new book. Same title as the movie. And what we couldn't fit in the movie, I put in the book. In the book, I've had some people read it and they said, Dave, you crossed all the I's and, dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. This is what everyone needs to read to fully understand. So, the book, the hat, DVDs, and Blu-rays all are going to be available on our site December 1st. But of all the movies that I've made, this one is probably the most different of them all. And it has nothing to do with Missing 411, even though a lot of Bigfoot Sasquatch sites like to say it does. It doesn't. It's a standalone topic. I was interested in Bigfoot Sasquatch way before I ever got into Missing 411. So, that's that. Go over and check it out. And you can go to our website, the Can-Am Missing Project on YouTube. Click on videos. That'll give you all the list of videos, and you can scroll down and watch the trailer for the movie. And I also did a second video about the trailer. You can go over there and watch that as well. Today, I broke this segment into 2 areas. First part deals with a missing person case out of Ontario. And the second part also deals with missing people, but a different twist to it, and you'll see what I mean. Haven't done this in a while on that second part. This first part deals with a man named Sudesh Singh, an Indian from India, 42 years old, missing November 16th, 1985, from a location called Lake Teresa in Ontario. No, he wasn't on the lake, but that's the closest identifier. This is where he was. This is Marathon, Ontario, White River, Lake Superior, Pukasqua National Park. Now, if I drove up close to this for you, you would see hundreds of small lakes, swamps in this area. And I have documented other cases in this area as well. Now, Sudesh, super smart man. And I mean that. He was a geologist, and he owned a company in Ottawa called Maison Neuve Energy Materials. He lived in a city called Aylmer. Almer? I don't know. Aylmer. No, you don't need to tell me how to say it. He's married. He had 2 kids, an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old. His wife, also super smart lady, Frances, she worked for the government of Ottawa, as a geographer. Now, Singh's company would travel throughout the region, but on this trip they were searching for gold, and they were working the north end of Teresa Lake, collecting rock samples, core samples. And he had 3 other associates with him in that area, all working together. They had worked together for many years. At a short period of time, the group split up, and Sudesh went to one area nearby, another guy went to another area, and a third guy went to another area. And they were apart for a few hours, and then they were going to meet back at camp about 2 kilometers away. Well, at the end of the day, Sudesh didn't show up at camp, and the guys went out looking for him, calling his name. It was cold. It was on the verge of winter. And they were calling for him. Nothing. They searched until after dark. Nothing. The following day, they searched all day for him. Still nothing. At the end of that day, one of the team members left to go get assistance. November 18th, the OPP, Ontario Provincial Police, arrived late in the day, and they started to interview the employees about where they last saw Sudesh, what were they doing there. They each interviewed the employees individually. The officers quickly realized that the scope of this was going to be bigger than 1 or 2 men could handle, and they made a call for assistance. The next day, November 19th, the search and rescue really started, with the OPP getting 11 locals to participate in the hunt. Most of the locals they got were outfitters that took hunters out. And they were also making a call for a helicopter, canine units, and more OPP officers. The local constable there was a man named Wendell Brown. Very seasoned, knew the area real well. Good guy for the job. He coordinated all the search activities. When they first started, in some areas there was a couple of inches of crusty snow, just in spots. He described the area to the press as very rough, rugged, and in some areas swampy. And he said that the conditions were wet and freezing. Think about this. Freezing conditions out in the bush. The last thing you want to do is get wet. Because if you get wet, you get hypothermia real quick. The guys were close They were working relatively close to their camp. Each man had a compass, had a map. They knew how to get their way around. They all knew the area. If they did get wet, they'd just go back to camp, change their clothes. So late in the day on the 19th, a police helicopter arrived and immediately was sent into that area looking for Sudesh or any evidence of him. And they weren't having any luck right away. To get into the area they were at was a long drive. So the OPP decided to use the helicopter to transport searchers and police back and forth into the area so they didn't waste time traveling to and from the point last seen. So the area around Teresa Lake that they were searching in, there were hundreds of lakes and ponds right around there. November 20th, the search and rescue continued with the helicopter working right from early in the morning. And this time they were able to bring in 20 ground pounders because the helicopter was there and flew them in. More outfitters committed to looking. And the search was activated in a grid pattern area, which is the smart way to do it. And this was 1985. Search and rescue was pretty far advanced. They knew what they were doing. And they started where Sudesh was last seen, and they kept working outwards. And they let the dogs lead. They weren't having any luck. Next day, November 21st, police helicopter and the ground teams continued. The OPP gave an interview to the press and stated that search and rescue efforts had to stop midday because of snow falling, at times heavy. Police canine was kept working right through the snow. And the OPP said something interesting. He said he was optimistic they would find Sudesh. Now his employees stayed right on site, kept working right through nonstop. The reason they said that they were optimistic they would find him is because he knew that area. He knew how to use a compass like an expert. He had a map. Nobody really believed he was lost. They thought he might be hurt somewhere. And his employees were sort of confused about why they couldn't locate him because they knew he wouldn't go very far. And there was no way for him to leave the area. It was fairly well confined by a local river that nobody thought that he was going to go near because it was freezing temps. His employees kept looking, stayed on site, and the weather in this region can turn ugly real quick. They were working on the edge of winter, which was just about to drop on them. Well, I say that, and on November 22nd, heavy snow fell, and part of that search area was swampy, and guys were searching before the snow started to fall up to their waist. Some were wearing waders. On the 22nd, they had 25 searchers, one dog, and the dog was having no success. So 2 kilometers from camp is really nothing. Especially with a helicopter, you should be able to find something, especially with FLIR. If he was injured, he's putting off the heat signature, should have been found. The search and rescue commander said that the search will continue for as long as they believe that Sudesh can be found. The next day on the 23rd, there was an extensive article in the Ottawa papers about Singh and his family. The family said to the press that they were, their words, tormented about how he can disappear. His wife, Frances, who's an expert on geography, said, "You just don't have a geologist. Someone who knows the land and has a map and a compass and was only 2 kilometers from camp and disappears like that." She said that the only thing that's possible is that he tried to cross the river and drown. One problem with that. It was 35 degrees at the warmest the day he disappeared. Nobody is crossing a river. When you cross a river and it's that cold, you're going to get hypothermia. You have to go right back to camp and change. That's why you're not crossing it. 36 police officers and volunteers continued to do the searching. Volunteers were increasing in size because they heard that they didn't have to walk all that way in, so the helicopter took them in. Now, the commander explained that Sudesh had worked in the woods the majority of his life. He was an expert in the use of the compass on a map. And being just 2 kilometers from camp meant that he had worked this area many times and knew it well. And if you think about that for a second, what could happen? There's no big roads near this area. Nobody came in and abducted him by car. He didn't walk out. What happened? He was the boss of this team. It was his company. November 25th, up to a foot of snow had already fallen on the ground in the last couple days, which is good and bad for searchers. It's good because if there's anybody walking around that area, it's going to be easy to see in the new snow. Well, the searchers now were risking their lives to go in the swamps looking, but they continued to do it up to their waist. And they were using men with chest-high waders. November 26th, a cold weather system blew into northern Canada, and temperatures dropped as low as minus 21 degrees centigrade. Okay, I'm sorry, we're done. Police commanders met and they determined that there was no chance of Sudesh surviving and called off the search. They said it was too dangerous for searchers to be out. Weather was going to get worse. They called Francis Singh and they explained the circumstances. Family still didn't understand how Sudesh could vanish. But they understood the decision to terminate. The OPP told the family that in the spring they'd make another effort. Now, understand something. Francis, his wife, worked for the government. She was a government geographer. Sudesh had his own geology company in Ottawa. He was pretty big time. Coupled with his wife's contacts in the government, it must have been, well, it was super harsh conditions for them to terminate all efforts. Now, when they say that they're going to come back in the spring, who knows if they ever would? Well, guess what? They did. They waited for 90-95% of the snow to be off the ground. And then on May 22nd, 1986, the OPP decided now would be an appropriate time to make another attempt to locate Sudesh. 12 OPP officers, 2 outfitters went back into the area where Sudesh's company was working. The OPP said that there was a 10-kilometer square area that had an outside chance that maybe he was at, that they didn't cover as comprehensively as they did the prime target areas. And I understand that. So they went back in and they grid searched this. And they did it for a couple days. The team also had the use of a helicopter that was flying them in and out. They didn't have a canine this time. And why not? Well, let's think about that. The only type of canine that would really be useful in this instance is a cadaver dog. And apparently they didn't have one in that region of Canada at that time. Well, the ground pounders and the helos, they found nothing. The OPP stated that there would be no further searches. Devastating to the family. It's now been 40 years. Sudesh has never been found. So let's think about this. Chances that he got lost, next to zero. I don't believe he got lost. And even if he did get lost temporarily, he was an expert with a map and a compass, and he had them, so he could have found his way out. Missing geologists, quickly becoming a new subgroup. The last time I talked about a missing geologist was a man that disappeared in Arizona. He was never found. Now, geologists are a lot like berry pickers, another subgroup. They are people that are primarily looking down at the ground, and they are taking things out of the ground. So think about that for a second. Is there something about that act that would instigate a response? Now, he was trying to remove gold ore from the ground. They were looking for samples, bringing them back, testing them, to seeing where they could mine later. Now, there was water surrounding this entire area, a lot of water. Canines were brought to the scene. They couldn't find a scent trail. Weather restricted the search and eventually ended the search because it was so severe. The quantity of the searchers being used was very small compared to past searches I've told you about. Now, why would that? Because there wasn't an organized search and rescue team in that area of Canada that they could be utilized. And there are others lost in this area of Canada that I've presented in the past. So what does that tell you? That makes me very sad for Sudesh's family. And his co-workers have to live with the fact that they were in an area when their boss disappeared. This area of Canada, lots of strangeness occurring out there. I've heard about it over the years. I'll tell you it's true. I've heard about it from some very, very high integrity people. All right, now let's get to the part 2 of this program. I know we have some new people here in the last couple months. Now, my first movie, Missing 411, dealt with young kids who disappear in the wilderness. Why did I do that? Because I made that first movie that way because I believed it would allow the outsiders of the world who knew nothing about this topic to understand that a 2-year-old can't walk through the woods over 2 mountain ranges, 12 miles and through barbed wire and be found the next day, face down, and still live in the snow. So it was to get you to buy into the fact that these extensively long trips that these kids are making, something unusual is happening. Well, in my research in the last couple months, I came across more interesting children's stories. August 24th, 1939, the Siskiyou Daily News, Northern California. Boy 3 lost in hills for 5 hours. 200 posse men join in the search for Edward Bates at Greenview. I read this. This is right where I used to vacation as a kid. Unafraid and as unconcerned as to his whereabouts as if he were playing in his own front yard, little Edward Bates Jr., 3-year-old son of Mr. and Mrs. Edward Bates of Dunsmuir. I've been there 50 times. Dunsmuir, just north of Reading, was found wandering in the mountains surrounding the Robert Denor Ranch in Greenview Tuesday evening in a hurriedly formed posse consisting of 200 men. The child was discovered several miles from the ranch 5 hours after he was first reported missing. He was unharmed and none the worse for the wear. With the wanderlust apparently overcoming him, the child wandered from the Denor Ranch where his parents were visiting between 3 and 4 in the afternoon. Primary time to disappear? 4 p.m. His absence was immediately discovered by the frantic parents, and a search was started on the premises, scouring the hills. Started with 200 ranchers, Forest Service men, firefighters, and law enforcement. When found by one of the posse at 9 o'clock Tuesday night, the youngster was still walking. He still wanted to climb the mountains. August, 9 o'clock, Northern California, still light outside. I brought this one up because he walked several miles at 3 years old in the mountains. And he was still walking? I don't know. Next one, June 26, 1939, Winton, Australia. Tom Clough, 4.5, wandered away from his parents' home in Tralee on Friday morning, and despite an intensive search by residents and police, was not located till early this afternoon. 4.5. The child who was found wandered 10 miles from his home, was cheerful and still pushing a go-kart he took with him. The police think he traveled many miles in the course of his wanderings. I've told you before, someone is found 10 miles in a straight line from where they disappeared, they probably walked 20 or 25 miles. Is that possible for somebody 4.5 years old? I'm just asking. I want you to be that critical thinker. The Advertiser, Australia. Body of missing child found. Discovered by uncle 11 miles from home. The body of Doris Goldstiver, 7, for whom police and civilians have been searching for since Christmas Day, was found today by her uncle Vincent, 11 miles from her grandmother's home in Toonpan, where she had been spending the holiday. A post-mortem exam revealed that the death was due to heat, exhaustion, and thirst. The child had lost her hat and shoes in her wanderings through the rough terrain. It is believed that death occurred on Sunday or Monday. The search in which 100 people, police, black trackers, and civilians participated was one of the biggest ever organized in North Queensland. Airplanes also cooperated with the ground parties. 7-year-old, 11 miles through the bush. Lost her hat and shoes. Again, 11 miles from her home meant that she had to have traveled 20 or 25 miles by foot. Possible? I don't think so. Lost her hat and her shoes. Now, I'm no expert. Trust me, I am no expert on this. But I would believe that if you're walking through the woods or through the bush, shoes would be a good thing to have on your feet. Just saying. The Pharos Tribune, Indianapolis, Indiana, October 29th, 1981. A toddler who disappeared 4 days earlier has been found safe and apparently healthy in a vacant house about 4 miles southeast from the apartment in which she vanished. Investigators began to immediately question people around the area where 18-month-old Tawana Dockery was found Wednesday naked and shaking from the cold house on East 36th Street. The officers tried to determine how long the child might have been in the abandoned house, And if everyone saw or heard anything, might tell us what happened. Okay. A toddler who disappeared 4 days earlier was found safe and apparently healthy in a vacant house 4 miles from her house. 18-month-old, 4 miles? I don't think so. What happened? How did she make it through those neighborhoods and nobody saw her? These get better, folks. Asbury Park Press, May 24th, 1929. Egg Harbor. Missing baby found 5 miles from home. David Wesley East, 2.5 years old, missing since Wednesday, was found in the woods 5 miles from his home. John McGarry, 13-year-old Boy Scout, part of the search party, found the small child. 2.5 years old, 5 miles. Come on. Be real. That dog don't hunt. I don't believe that. I believe it, but I don't think you walk it. And you know, the other thing about small kids, they can't explain. Most real small kids, they can't explain what happened. Okay, now this one, pay close attention. The Bastrop Daily Enterprise, August 11th, 1955, Oakdale, Louisiana. Headlines, child was found 20 miles away in river swamp. Allen Parish Sheriff's deputies estimated today that a 14-year-old Oakdale girl who could give no reason for her nocturnal wanderings had walked in circles through the Calisao River swamp for 20 miles. Sheriff's deputies Dallas Bertrand trailed the girl with bloodhounds through the swamp, across swollen Sherry Winchie Creek, and finally found her crouched behind a piano in the Oak Hill Baptist Church. The child, Helen Buxton, was scratched, muddy, and very much frightened. The search for the child was set up at 6 a.m. yesterday when Helen's stepmother, Mrs. Bessie Buxton, discovered the child missing from her bed. A search party conducted by Allen Parish Sheriff's deputies and volunteers hunted for 5 hours before they found the child unharmed at 11:30 a.m. The girl's father, Lloyd Buxton, said Helen could not explain how she crossed the flood-swollen creek or why she wandered through the swamp. No girl is crossing a flooded creek. That dog doesn't hunt. You know that. I know that. She has no memories. She's scared. What happened? What really could have happened? Wichita Falls, July 30th, 1931. That's a newspaper, by the way. The incident is in Big Spring, Texas. Negro child's body found 15 miles from home on Snyder Ranch. Collis Wells, a 2-year-old Negro boy, was found dead today 15 miles from the 9R Ranch from which he had wandered Tuesday morning. Nathan Reynolds, owner of the ranch, said the boy had been dead but a short time. Several hundred men searched the range for 48 hours, along with an airplane aiding in the hunt. The 9R Ranch is located 20 miles west of Snyder, Texas. The boy had wandered westward from it. Colin is the son of the ranch cook. If he wandered 15 miles in a line from where he first was last seen, that meant he walked 25 to 30 miles for a 2-year-old. Come on. Even 15 miles for a 2-year-old. Give it up. Come on. And you know what's odd? In all of these cases, they talk, this was in July, they talk about how these kids especially walk through rattlesnake infested area, this thing, and they're never bit. How do they not get bit? Think about that. I always save the strangest one for last. Lewiston Daily Teller, Kippen, Idaho. An exciting child hunt. 100 men and women searched the woods all night near Kippen, Idaho for a lost child. One found the next day sleeping quietly. Kippen, Idaho, May 12, 1900. Quite an excitement was caused here last Wednesday when Mr. F.C. Williams and his family near Nez Perce discovered their little boy, 2.5 years old, was missing. They were on their way to Cornwall, Idaho, and had stopped at C.S. Stanford's to remain over the night. At 5 o'clock in the evening, the little fellow was missed from among other kids. A search was once commenced and news sent far and wide, and 2 hours later the entire community was engaged in the search. Men and women, 75 in number, could be seen in every direction. All through the night the search was continued. No success. In the morning, about 50 men on horseback formed into a line a quarter-mile long and searched the country 2 miles around where the child was last seen, while about 50 more were on foot, searched among the logs and stumps and treetops in every direction. At 11 o'clock, the glad tidings rang out through the woods that the child had been found. The child was just, get this, the child was discovered about 2.5 miles from where it left the road, and to H.K. Vincent and T.J. Burns is the credit due, when the young boy was found asleep in an old treetop. I didn't make it up. Why did I read that to you? Because you guys are smart. And you guys know that those stories are impossible. And if it's impossible for the kids to make that kind of distance, then how did they make it? Dreaming. When she dreams, she barks, runs, all kinds of stuff. Kind of humorous. So anyhow. Oh, you woke yourself up snoring too loud, eh? Thanks for being here. You are greatly appreciated. Check out the website, missing411.com. If you can get to Tacoma for the premiere, please do. You will have fun. And you'll meet some people. You have a lot of people in one place that would never be there in one place except for something big. You are appreciated. Kindness is king. Kindness is free. And you know and I know we need more kindness in our world. So, please post this on your social media. Make sure you are getting the notifications and you're still subscribed. I've had hundreds in the last month tell me, so magically I got unsubscribed. And I haven't been getting notifications in months. And my views are going like this because none of you know. Right. Frustrating as all heck. So, be kind, be polite, polite us out.